Welcome to the SLP Stress Management Podcast. I'm your host, Jessie Andrix, and I am so pumped for today's episode. So today I am here with Devin Roscillo from Unleashed Innovation, and Devin is an innovation and mindset coach as well as an SLP. So welcome, Devin.
Thank you so much, Jessie. It's so nice to be here.
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad that you were able to be here, and I'm really excited to talk about all that you are doing and to share some of your experience as an SLP, but also as a coach, and some of the things that you do as a coach and with your clients, with the audience here and with these SLPs that are feeling stressed out and are looking for ways to just enjoy life more.
Yeah, totally. Me too.
Yeah, I know that we have very similar experiences as SLPs and both of us getting into coaching. So I'd love to share a little bit more of your kind of your background with everyone and your experience as an SLP dealing with stress and what led you to where you are now.
Yeah, absolutely. Be happy to share. So I started my SLP career in 2016. I started in sniffs. And over time, I just gradually started to learn more and more that I was totally burnt out, that I was totally stressed. I mean, I literally had medical issues because of the stress in the beginning of my career. I had to have my heart checked out. So you could tell I was definitely going through the stress of the job. And about 3.5 years into the career, I realized that I was just so unhappy. I was really, really struggling because no matter what I was doing, and I did a lot of self-care because I discovered personal development during that time, I was doing a lot of self-care and it really just wasn't cutting it for me. And the reason it wasn't cutting it for me was just because SLP world was not for me. It took me a long time to learn that. And it took me getting to rock bottom to really learn that. So I finally realized last year in November, in 2019, that I wasn't able to use like the creative side of myself like I really wanted to express.
Mm-hmm.
And so it took me getting to rock bottom, like I said, and I drove up to, this is funny, well, not funny, it was awful. But I drove up to work one day last November, and I just started bawling in the parking lot. And it was a really crazy experience because I just cried for an hour. And I looked at the building. Every time I looked at the building, I thought about going in, and I just kept breaking down more and more. So I turned around and drove the hour home in the rain, and I gave my notice 2 days later.
Wow.
So it was a really, really strong experience for me because that was the point where I really realized that I just wasn't living my fullest potential. And while other people may be burnt out, it could be for different reasons, but for me, it was definitely because I wasn't using my creativity as much as I could. And so I decided to slowly start phasing out speech, and I became a coach because that is something that I was doing for the past 2 years, but I never turned it into a business. I had coached people since I started working on personal development. And it was something that I never turned into a business. So when I quit my speech job with really no backup plans, I decided to start a coaching business. And I'm really, really happy that I did that because it really lights me up. And I can definitely say that that's my passion.
Yeah. And you can tell like from talking with you and then from like your Instagram account and all of these things, which if anyone is not already following Devin, go to Devin_Unleashed Innovation. And like you do so many things for people and are so passionate and helping. And it's just really amazing. And it is a different kind of creativity. I know that you've mentioned that a few times. And I think that a lot of SLPs find that they get to be really creative and creating crafts and things
Yeah.
and working with, for me, that is not fun. And like for me personally, like that is incredibly draining and
Yeah.
stressful. And one of the reasons why when I ended up working in the schools, I felt even less connected to what I was doing because I was
Hmm.
just like, that's not who I am.
Right.
And similar to you, it was like that I wanted to be creative and
Hmm.
do other things, but my way of being creative was through movement and through writing
Hmm.
and just like a totally different thing that at the time I didn't feel like I could do. So I get that, and I
Yeah.
think that that is really common, kind of feeling lost
Hmm.
in what we're doing and in the field.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So I mean, I love that our stories are very, very similar. It was like I started out in skilled nursing facility, worked an hour away.
Hmm.
All of these things really led to burnout. What made you really clear? Like, was there even something that made it really clear to you? Like, it's not the job,
Hmm.
it's not the right career for me.
Right.
I think it's something a lot of people struggle with trying to
Yeah.
figure out.
Yeah, definitely. So I had actually, throughout the like 3.5, 4 years of practicing before I transitioned to coaching, I was in skilled nursing. Then I switched to PRN full time and was in skilled nursing and home health. And home health was a mix of pediatrics and geriatrics. And then I
Mm,
also went straight to pediatrics and an outpatient clinic. And so I realized through in all of those settings that I wasn't happy. And so that was a big indicator where where I thought I had really tried all the different settings and all the different populations. When I realized that I wasn't happy in any of them, that was a big indicator for me that maybe this just isn't right for me, and maybe there's something else that's going to help me live my fullest potential and that different level of creativity that I really needed to express.
yeah, that's amazing, and I think that's really helpful. There are so many SLPs that are like trying to figure out
Hmm.
this, is this just the job I'm at now and just the
Hmm.
amount of stress I'm feeling, or is this just not the right, like, do I need to make a career leap and figure out how
Yeah.
to do that?
Hmm.
Um, I know for me, that was what happened. And I decided it was the wrong career. And then a few years later, I realized like I was still really interested in it. So
Hmm.
maybe I could just find another way to be in it,
Hmm.
and be involved. And it morphed into like this type of
Right.
thing.
Yeah.
um, yeah, but and figuring that out though is really, really hard. So
Hmm.
I love that you tried a few things and worked through coaching at the time with it, and no matter
Hmm.
what, you still kind of had that same feeling.
Yeah.
I think that's really helpful.
Yeah.
So now you are in the coaching world, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about what you do or how that's like helped you and others kind of work through some of this stress.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I started coaching last year, like officially my own coaching business. I started with coaching SLPs, both SLPs who wanted to up level their career and find themselves in a new or more challenging SLP environment, and SLPs who wanted to transition out of the field completely. And so part of my job then was to really help them become more clear on what they wanted and to invite some personal development into their lives. That's
Mhm.
really a very an area that I'm really passionate about, is personal development, because it totally changed my life.
Yeah.
And so I would introduce those aspects of personal development into their lives to help them manage the stress and to help them find something that's more exciting to them, or to at least find a hobby or a passion that they can pursue, whether it's a side gig or it becomes a career, etc. And so I was working with SLPs on that for a while. And then I think, when COVID hit in March, I realized that I had skills that were applicable to other people as well. And so what I do now, the way my ideal client has shifted is I now work with, they may be SLPs, they may be medical professionals, or people even in the corporate world who are feeling limited in their creativity by their career. And so what I do now is I help them figure out exactly what's going to help them be and express their creativity more, kind of how to unleash their creativity and how to create a self-empowered mindset so that they really believe in themselves and are not limited by their own limiting beliefs while they pursue a career in entrepreneurship.
Oh, that's amazing.
It's really cool. I love it.
Yeah. That is super. I love it too. And I love that it's, you've worked with SLPs, but other helping professionals, and then just other professionals in
Mhm.
general. Um, and what you say about, like, feeling empowered, unleashing your own creativity, your
Mhm.
own, kind of becoming an entrepreneur and going for it. Um, it does speak to what you mentioned before with that lack of creativity,
Mhm.
or feeling like there's no way to be it, because sometimes it is like physically doing something creative and building something with the students or the
Mhm.
patients, but then sometimes it is building a business and
Yeah.
building, being creative about your lifestyle. And
Right.
when that's, when that's something that you can't do, it's really stressful and it really weighs on you, and
Mhm.
starts to, for me, it started to snowball into everything else,
Yeah,
where,
me too.
like,
Mhm.
just, yeah, like, work was hard, and then it was still on my mind when I left, and it
Yeah,
wasn't, yeah, it was just like everything started to be affected by it.
the
So,
ultimate carryover.
yeah, right? It's like, this is not the carryover I was working for.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know. And for me, it was when things started to affect my personal life and
Right.
my health that I was like, oh, okay, this is like not just, my job is not fun anymore. This is like so much more.
Yeah.
So it's amazing that you do reach out to so many people.
Mhm.
So when you were working with, SLPs, and now with others, and working on up leveling
Mhm.
what they were doing, or trying to transition, what were some of the key things that you would, and even now with everyone you're working with, some of the
Mhm.
key things that you would find yourself suggesting, or find yourself coaching them through, like, tools that they could use?
Mhm. Yeah. So, two of the biggest things that I focus on in my coaching are developing self awareness.
Mhm.
Because we will find, so many of us will find that we avoid the things that make us self aware. And
Yeah.
the reason for that is because we don't want to face the demons. Like it's much easier for us to sit on a couch and scroll on our phone than to sit on the couch and ask ourselves, in our journal, a really, really painful question, or even just a really empowering question in and of itself. And so, yeah, that's the biggest thing. And the first thing that I always work on with my clients is developing their self awareness, because we need to be aware of the negative or unhelpful habits or the unhelpful thoughts that we have for ourselves in order to change them. That's
Yeah, like,
the first step is figuring out what's limiting you.
yes. Yes. I love
And,
that.
and so the other thing that I work on a lot is the limiting beliefs that we have. So limiting beliefs essentially are the thoughts that we tell ourselves regularly that can limit us or hold us back from growing. They typically are deep rooted beliefs that we hold about ourselves in our life that typically are incorrect or just unhelpful and don't serve us. So, a lot of the limiting beliefs that we have about ourselves will actually come from someone else, which is kind of crazy. Like, if you
Mhm.
have a parent who's always said, you'll never make money. Or if you had a teacher that said, or a coach that said, you'll never be good enough to get to this level. Those are beliefs that they pass on to us, and they get in our way really a lot. It's incredible how much they'll get in our way. And so that's something I really like to tackle in the beginning of coaching as well, because we really want to release those beliefs so that they stop holding us back and so that we can flourish and thrive through whatever our journey is.
Yes, and it's so true. I was just actually thinking about this like last night. I was having a discussion with my husband about like limiting beliefs and things that I was feeling come up and
Mm-hmm.
things that I was like kind of hearing myself say or just, thinking
Mm-hmm.
and knowing that thinking that and feeling that was holding me back,
Mm-hmm.
even though, and it was just one of those like they happen all the time
Yeah.
for so many of us.
Yeah.
Even when you're, think you've worked through it or you're like, oh
Mm-hmm.
no, this is fine, it's good. And then sometimes they pop up. So it is just incredible work to really dig into those.
Yeah.
And then I love the awareness part because it really is, like you said, it's the first step. Like you
Mm-hmm.
becoming aware helps you move towards everything else. And if
Right.
you're not aware, you don't even know what to do about anything or
Right.
what's going on. And we do tend to check out and,
Yeah.
scroll through Facebook or scroll through social
Mm-hmm.
media or like, binge on Netflix
Mm-hmm.
to like it's almost like ignoring the stress.
Yeah.
Like if you just pretend and do something else, it's not there, but then it's just like building in the background.
Right.
Yeah. So, what are some things that you find are really helpful to begin to find this awareness? Like obviously
Mm-hmm.
stopping scrolling through mindlessly through Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
Instagram, trying not to sit there and just binge on whatever it might be.
Right.
But what are some like tools or steps that people could take to bring more of that in?
Yeah. So that's a great question. So, Um, one of the first things I'll have people do is start a journaling practice. And I have a very, very specific journaling practice that I use that I don't actually like calling it journaling, but it's the easiest word because I think there's a common misconception about journaling that you take out a journal and just dump all your negative thoughts onto the page.
Hmm.
But my process is not meant to be that. It's actually meant to be a place that you go to empower yourself. And so the way I kind of frame it is it's a intentional writing process, really. So when you
Nice.
open your journal, there's the things you're writing about should always be intentional and they should always be empowering. So, but one of the first questions, one of the prompts that I put in my journaling is called a self empowerment awareness or a self awareness empowerment question, and that's really the section where you ask yourself a hard question. So the very first question that I like to start people with is, what do I need to stop doing, and what do I need to start doing? Because that brings your awareness to the negative, unhelpful things that you do throughout the day. So you can literally, when you say, what do I need to stop doing, you can literally recount everything in your day that you did and then check off everything that was unhelpful. And that helps you identify what's a negative habit, right? And so while that might feel kind of crappy, just identifying all those negative habits, that's why you write, what do I need to start doing? Or what do I get to start doing? And that's where you can reverse the negative things and identify new success habits or helpful habits that will help you succeed and change in a way that you want to. So I always start people off with that question. And then the questions that come from there can be a deep dive on behaviors or how you're feeling or a reflection of your day or a really good question that I like to ask, but this is kind of a more advanced one that sometimes people aren't ready to answer, but that's okay. Is when I release my non-helpful thoughts and circumstances and I embrace and honor my non-negotiables, what is possible for me? And so the reason that's kind of advanced is just because we have to identify what our non negotiables are first. And our non negotiables are things that we just, from this point on, won't tolerate in our life anymore because we know
Mhm.
we need to adapt better things. But I
Yeah,
love
and that
that
can be
question.
so hard. That is
Yeah.
a really good question. And a really, really, I mean, that. that is really hard,
Yeah.
because when you're trying to, decide like, okay, this is it, there's a lot of things that you can come up against
Hmm.
or feel like are going to come up, and talk yourself out of it before you even
Yes.
begin to do it.
Yes. And the most common thing we'll see when we start a journaling practice, and even when we, are used to a journaling practice, is resistance. So,
Mhm.
and resistance comes in so many forms. It comes in procrastination. It comes in making excuses as to why you don't have to do it today, things like that. And so there's often a process of resistance that comes when you start a journaling practice, or even just when you start personal development and self-awareness practices, because we don't want to face the hard things, but the hard things and facing those things is ultimately what makes us grow.
Yes. Um, that's so true. I have a couple things that just kind of popped up with that.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, I guess one is that, this is like kind of the ultimate form of self-care, really,
Mm-hmm.
because you're taking care of your needs.
Yeah.
Um, but it's not the like kind of fluffy, warm, fuzzy,
Mm-hmm.
cozy self-care. It's like you just said, it can be really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Um, so but it's so important, right?
Yeah.
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 Um, I love that, because I do think a lot of times when we think of self-care, um,
We
we
think
end
of
up
getting
thinking
a
that it
massage.
yeah, which are like, those are really great things. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's not like, "Oh, never go do that." Like,
Yeah.
maybe not right now, like, with everything going on, but yeah, like,
Right.
it's beyond, like, taking a bubble bath, or,
Yeah.
kind of those, like, it's deep, deep work that can be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Um, so with that, because no one likes to feel uncomfortable, but
Right.
it is important to feel that, because that's where, like you said, that's where you grow from,
Mm-hmm.
and where the changes you need come from.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that resistance, when it shows up as, like excuses, or like, oh, well, I don't have to do it today, I'll do it tomorrow. Like, it's just not going to happen right now in my life. Or that procrastination that you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned, especially. Um, do you ever find that people, like, a lot of people really like that they procrastinate,
Mm-hmm.
like, it's kind of like a badge, like,
Mm-hmm.
well, I just wait till the end, and then that's when I work the best, and when I
Mm-hmm.
work, and get the most done, and really, make
Mm-hmm.
things happen. Um, how do you work with that, with
Mm-hmm.
resistance,
Yeah, yeah. So there's actually a really deep rooted reason through why people procrastinate, which is really interesting. And you'll find that a lot of perfectionists are people who procrastinate. And the reason for that, and I might butcher this a little bit, but I'm going to try my hardest, is because if we procrastinate and we do it at the last minute, we can't possibly have given our fullest effort. And so, if we receive a bad grade, let's say for a student, if we receive a bad grade on that test or that essay that we submitted at the very last minute, then we can rationalize, oh, well, I didn't put my all into it, so it's okay. And so, that's procrastinating is a way of facing, if it's not perfect, it's okay because I didn't put all my all into it, instead of actually taking your full time and maybe getting a bad grade anyway. Then we
Mhm.
have only ourselves to blame, and then it hurts.
Yes, that makes a ton of sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is super important for SLPs that are
Yeah.
listening, because perfectionism is a huge um like issue
Issue.
in the
Yeah.
field. I think a lot of times perfectionism at first is seen as like this really great thing, like strive to be perfect, do the best.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of like, when I went to ASHA in 2018,
Mm-hmm.
um, a lot of the schools that were there presenting like posters, there were a lot that were looking at competitiveness and perfectionism, and the
Mm-hmm.
amount of stress that their students were under,
Mm-hmm.
that they didn't realize, and like the pressure they didn't realize they were putting on the students,
Mm-hmm.
until they started to have students like having to drop out, having breakdowns, like
Mm-hmm.
coming into their offices just sobbing, like you were, bawling in your car. and like we don't want anyone to ever do, no matter like if that is told that that is what we should do for stress management. It's not.
Yeah.
Um, and so the thing that they realized was that like it's that competitiveness to be perfect and to do
Yeah.
the best, be the best, and get the best spot and get the best grades, and that was actually what they were kind of telling everyone to do, and then it was totally
Mhm.
backfiring, and
Mhm.
like the students would do it, but then they couldn't live. They couldn't just
Yes.
be human outside of that.
Yeah.
So I think that is a really good thing to think about, and then it
Mhm.
makes sense that procrastination. I mean, I totally did that.
Yeah.
Was definitely a procrastinator all through. But it does make sense because then you can blame it on, well, there's no way I could have gotten an A on this or gotten
Mhm.
100% because I didn't have the time.
Yep.
I had to throw it together,
Exactly.
and so there's no way. But yeah, when you do put a lot of effort and you start and you give yourself the space and time, and then it still doesn't get what you want, then you really do have to feel it.
Yeah. And
And
there's
that's hard.
actually, I have a great resource because I know a lot of SLPs are perfectionists. So there's a great resource. I listened to a podcast called Manifestation Babe, and I think it's episode 129. She has a guest on named Sam Laura Brown, and it talks all about perfectionism and procrastination. So that's a great resource for your guests or your listeners.
Yeah,
And
I'll put
then,
that in the notes.
yeah, Sam Laura Brown also has a podcast herself, which is called the Perfectionism Project, and she's really, really insightful. I think that could be very beneficial for some people.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you for those. Yeah, I do. Like, those are such big things that just lead to more stress and then lead you to
Yeah.
questioning, like, is this me? Is this the career? Is this the job? And then it,
Hmm.
it all kind of keeps circling around
Hmm.
and around.
Yeah.
Um, well,
And it's,
awesome. And
mhm.
yeah, the journaling that leads you through those questions,
Yeah.
um, I just think those are so powerful, those questions, and getting to answer them rather than just kind of keeping a daily diary.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Because I think that, and this is just my personal belief, but dumping all your thoughts, that's great because we do need to release some things. But I
Hmm.
always want my journaling prompts to be focused on the okay, and what now? How do I grow now? And I think that's also a good way to get past the resistance. To answer your earlier question, when you're feeling resistance, a solid way to address that is to simply ask yourself, and you can write it down or you can just say it in your head, what's going to make me better today?
Hmm.
And the answer to that question is never sitting on the couch and scrolling. Right?
True.
So it's kind of like a begrudging answer where we say, okay, doing my journaling. Or just doing one prompt, just doing the daily intention, or just doing the gratitude. Always small, simple steps are totally fine and actually really, really smart when you're starting any new practice is to take small, simple steps because then we reduce the overwhelm and we actually increase the probability of building a new habit.
Yes. Yes. That is so. I remember that was one of like the very first things that was kind of taught when I was going through like coaching training was,
Mm-hmm.
build small changes
Mm-hmm.
over the long haul rather than a huge change, to overhaul your life right away for this
Yeah,
short amount of time. It's not, it's like New Year's resolutions where you decide like I'm quitting doing this and I'm going to completely change my life, and then for a week you do it and then it's too much. It's too
exactly.
hard.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's so true, and it's a lot of what I think it's like a lot of like the diet programs that are, which is this is like a totally other topic, but a lot of like the 21-day programs or
Mm-hmm.
things where you are like completely like you can never have this again and you've got to have this and you've got
Yep.
to do these things where then you find like you're just doing it and then not doing it and then doing
Yep.
it and not doing it. But these small changes where you're really getting deep and questioning and
Mm-hmm.
working through
Mm-hmm.
create that lasting effect that over time you don't even realize you're doing it anymore. You're just living it.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
amazing. It's amazing. You have very lucky clients that get to do
Oh.
this with you.
Thank you.
Well, awesome. So, with all of this, with journaling and with self-awareness, is there anything else that you really like to you know teach or coach with your clients, or kind of share, like anything else that you find is kind of crucial for people to know or to work with, or something that just helps in general?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I mentioned earlier that something I really work on with my clients is limiting beliefs. I think it's a deeper level work and more advanced level work, but I do think that it's really important for people to start acknowledging and recognizing what their limiting beliefs are. And so I just kind of wanted to give your listeners a prompt to help them identify some of their beliefs so that they can start to work through them. And I host a number of workshops to work through limiting beliefs and release them. It's actually called the Limiting Beliefs Release Workshop. um, but
Nice.
yeah, so I just wanted to kind of go through a really simple 3-step process for you guys. When I host the workshops, we get like really, really deep dive, but just for, beginners of self-awareness, or even like intermediate self-awareness and personal development peeps, there's a 3-step process that I use for identifying the limiting beliefs. So the first thing you have to do is become self-aware, of course, because the first step in changing yourself is becoming self-aware, right? So you can ask yourself the hard questions to start identifying these beliefs, like what holds me back in life, or what do I tell myself that probably holds me back from doing things that would benefit me. And that question, what do I tell myself that probably holds me back from doing things that would benefit me, is a really good starting point. Or what do I tell myself on a regular basis in my head? That's another really revealing question, too. So, the
Mm.
3-step process that I use is to one, identify the belief. And this can literally be like a 5-minute exercise that you start in your journaling practice. Of course, it's better when you take a little more time on it, but if you're really experiencing some resistance to it and you just want to kind of do the quick and dirty version, which is what I'm giving you, then you can take 5 minutes. But step one is to identify the belief. Step two is to find evidence from your life, no matter when it was in your past, that supports the opposite of whatever that belief is. Right? So,
Mhm.
a common belief that I see is I don't know enough. So let's say we're working with that one. You would just say, you would identify at some point in your life, maybe you were giving a presentation at ASHA where you did know enough then. So you would write that down. You would write down evidence that does not support the belief. And then the third step is just reframing the belief and creating a limitless belief, which is to literally flip what you wrote in step one, basically reflecting the exact opposite of the limiting belief, and then writing because and the evidence to support the opposite. And I think that's a really, really powerful exercise that you can just do yourself. And of course, like I said, I walk people through it a lot more in depth, but it's the first time I did that exercise, I was like, well, shoot, there's a lot actually holding me back. And I feel a lot more empowered now that I've turned these into limitless beliefs. So I hope
Yes,
that's helpful.
it is. That is that is amazing, and I love that it's limiting to limitless. Like,
Hmm.
just flip it.
Yeah, I'm
See
a
that.
big fan of limitlessness.
Yes. Oh, that's awesome.
Mhm.
Well, yeah, and I think those would be really, really helpful for getting everyone started finding those limitless
Mhm.
beliefs.
Awesome.
So where else can we find more from you?
Yeah, sure. So I spend more of my time on Facebook than on Instagram. I'll kind of like pop into Instagram for a week and then like fall off for 2 weeks. So I'm on Facebook consistently though. So it's just my name, Devin Roscillo, on Facebook, and then you can always see information about my workshops or my upcoming masterminds that starts on July 7th. on unleashedinnovation.com. And that is the mastermind, just so you guys know, is it's a 90-day program with 6 other SLPs / to-be entrepreneurs who want to work on developing their personal development and self-awareness and growth mindset while also learning the business fundamentals to start your business if that's what you want to do. So I'm really excited for that. That starts July 7th, and all the information is on my website. And I would say you can definitely reach me on Instagram too, but like I said, I'm not as consistent on there. So that's where you can find me.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much for sharing just all of these really useful tools, and your experience with everything, and of course sharing where SLPs can go to reach out and learn more and get some of this personal development that turns into professional development and can really help them figure out where to go on their path next and how to unleash that creativity. So thank you so much for being here, Devin.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much for having me, Jessie.
Yes, anytime. And I hope you all enjoyed it, and go check out all of those resources that Devin has to offer. And thank you all for tuning in. Are you ready to truly manage your stress, reduce burnout, and finally find more balance in your life? Well, the SLP Stress Management course is here to help you do just that. In this 8-week course, you'll take a deep dive into what stress is and why it affects SLPs so much, as well as learn practical stress management tools as you build a step-by-step system that works for your stress and your daily needs. You can check this out now at jessieandrix.com, and I hope to see you in the course.